So I would like to please hand this off to Ashton Wingate and Shelby Wong. Their presentation is developing and implementing an ingest workflow at the LDF, the Legal Defense Fund. So, Ashton or Shelly, who would like to go first?
I'll go ahead and go first, and I'll share my screen here
Great.
fairly quickly. Again, my name is Ashton Wingate. I am manager of digital archives here at the Legal and Educational Defense Fund, pronouns he, him, and I'll hand it over to Shelby to introduce herself.
Good afternoon, sorry.
I'm so sorry, Shelby. Just one second. Kelly, could you please unshare your
screen? I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right. You perfectly were reasonable to leave that up, but
sorry about that.
And Shelby, go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shelby Wong, and I'm the Assistant Digital Archivist also at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund.
Thanks, Shelby. And so we are really happy to be here today, DC community, and to kind of introduce ourselves to you all, and excited to share our work with you. As our previous presenter indicated, we're all at different stages and phases of this, and so this is something that has been probably about 4 years in the making, and so we've kind of recently just launched this, and we're iterating on it and hoping to get better and more efficient. So happy to receive feedback and questions and all that sort of stuff. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Just quickly, what we're going to go over, we're going to tell you who we are as an organization, why an archives at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund is important, the goals of the project from the outset, a little bit about the technical infrastructure underlying the workflow. We'll walk through steps of the workflow itself, and then we'll talk about the end result, which is LDF Recollection, a new website that we just launched that is sort of undergirded and supported by the digitization workflow. And then finally, we'll end with costs of the project or related to the project. So the NAACP Legal and Educational Defense Fund is the nation's premier civil rights law firm fighting for civil rights and racial justice since 1940. We began life as the NAACP's legal department, but we separated from the NAACP in the late 50s to become an independent nonprofit organization. The Archives Department is housed within the Thurgood Marshall Institute, which complements LDF's traditional litigation strengths and brings critical capabilities to the fight for racial justice, including research, targeted advocacy campaigns in all litigation areas: criminal justice, economic equity, educational equity, and election protection. The Archives Department complements all of this work by preserving LDF's rich history, allowing us to leverage the valuable information from LDF's past litigation, advocacy, and organizing to meet the present moment that we're in and help fulfill our vision for the future. Our contribution to the national discourse is significant, we feel, because LDF is the sole repository of many of the materials in its archives, especially those that capture the role of the legal system and lawyers in some of the most significant events in American history. So with over 8,000 boxes of physical material in storage and over 5 terabytes and counting of born digital information, we felt that we needed a long-term solution that would be able to grow with our archival program. We needed to find a way to refine data about the items in our collections and attach that data to items once refinement was complete. The process encompasses a lot of information about LDF's history and about civil rights history in general, from all different litigation areas, cases, geographic areas, and individuals who have worked here or alongside us in the past few decades. It allows or also necessitates the creation of digital equivalents to physical objects, processes, and locations like storage facilities. Most importantly, this information had to be secure and accessible, internally and externally, as LDF was opening up our archives to the public for the first time. And I do really want to underlie that, can't be overstated, if you will. As a nonprofit law firm, many of the items in our collections have sensitive, privileged, and confidential information. And so it's very important that we don't violate that privilege and that all of that information has to be cleared before any information can be shared publicly. And so all of this, this infrastructure, these workflows, this investment had to be made prior to opening up our archives to the public. And Shelby will talk a little bit about our description, preservation, and access model.
All right, so there are three main platforms that are essential to our digital workflows, which are Microsoft Dynamics, Preservica, and the LDF Recollection website. So Microsoft Dynamics kind of serves as our single source of truth. It allows us to bring together disparate caches of information related to case files and items in our archives and bring them into alignment to accurately describe our archival records. Preservica allows us or provides us with a trusted repository, and it serves and secures It preserves and secures LDF's institutional records, ensuring their integrity and usability in alignment with OAIS ISO 14721, a framework of archival standards for long-term digital preservation and access. Preservica also remains as the point of access for internal stakeholders at LDF. The website, LDF Recollection, contains a subset of the records and information housed in Preservica, which are cleared for sharing with the public. All three components are connected via APIs, ensuring that when information is updated in Dynamics, that those changes are cascaded upwards and eventually reflected on the website. Next slide, please. So to give a broad overview of our digitization process, we first start with the research and retrieval stage. This represents the research that goes into deciding which cases or collections are prioritized for digitization and publication on the website, involving input from beyond the archives department. So for example, it may depend on the needs of our editorial team for access to content about certain cases like voting rights cases. Once this is decided, the boxes are retrieved from storage. Second, the boxes arrive at our office where we survey and process the physical contents. This involves examining everything in the boxes to determine the provenance, the creators and origin, and relevant information such as the courts associated with those items. Through this process, we determine the order that the items will be arranged in digitally, which aims to mirror the original item or original order of the physical items as closely as possible. We also note any preservation concerns or missing items or any special instructions for the digitizers. And from there, the items are sent to the external digitizer, who provides us with 2 digital versions of each item, 1 PDF access copy and a TIFF storage copy. Once we receive both versions of every item from the digitizer, we move on to the QC or quality control checking process. We check the files to ensure that there are no visible scanning anomalies or missing pages, that the OCR is functional. We also check to make sure that the structure and names of the files reflect the instructions provided to the digitizer and that nothing is missing or misplaced. Once quality checks are complete, we then add description, building on the work done during the physical processing stage, to each item in Microsoft Dynamics, following a set of minimum viable metadata. Sometimes this step is also done simultaneously with quality checking. After all the items are completely described, any items that were flagged as potentially containing sensitive content during the description process are passed along to the Archives Council. If she finds the item contains information that is privileged, sensitive, or confidential, she may restrict access to it or redact specific information. Once all these steps have been completed, the items can be finally ingested into Preservica, which is considered permanent storage and is also used to provide internal access to items. Now, in most cases, we would also be uploading them to the Recollection website where they can be viewed and downloaded by the public. Next slide, please. So to kind of circle back to Microsoft Dynamics, for our collections, we wanted to create an interface that was both intuitive and suited to our needs as a legal civil rights archive, which eventually led us to adopt Microsoft Dynamics, which is originally designed as a customer relations management system to our digitization processes. So we use Dynamics to add descriptive metadata for items and collections, which I'll demonstrate later, as well as to keep track of our progress with various digitization projects. Typically, a project represents our efforts to digitize one specific collection, which is usually the documents from one case or the files of one individual. As you can see here, each stage of the digitization process is documented here, and Dynamics also allows us to build in certain criteria to progress from one stage to the next. So for example, to complete the privilege review stage, all the documents flagged for review must be checked off by the Archives Council in the system before moving on to the ingest stage. It also provides us with metrics about how long the project has been active, how long we've spent at each stage, and it collects information gathered about that collection in the processing stage. Next slide.
All right, so we'll hop into taking a closer look at some of the workflow steps that Shelby has gone over in the overview here. And so in workflow 3, we kind of see this process of sending items to the digitizer, an external third-party digitizer, to scan, as well as our back and forth or interaction with them during the scanning process. In step 3.1, along with the records the digitizer receives, they also receive instructions, as Shelby indicated, specific to the collection, as well as a set of unique identifier prefixes that are applied to the folder as well as the items at the item level. And these unique identifiers travel with that item throughout the entire workflow and process so that we can understand kind of and backtrack where that item comes from, what collection it's related to, just in case we should need to at a future date or time. 3.2 was previously a requirement by the digitizer, or that we thought was necessary for the digitizer that we were working with prior to the current one that we have now, provide us a sample of the project before the full project is scanned. Due now to our comfort level with our new digitizer, this is really only needed for new record types or to confirm scanning preferences, for example, oversized items or things that we have not quite encountered yet. 3.5, in terms of records transfer, the records are uploaded from the digitizer to our Azure cloud storage, which serves as the holding area for preservation copies and use copies. A quick quality control is done in the Azure environment to do a cursory review of scans and ensure the entire collection has been delivered. TIFF files are sent to cold storage, and use copies are uploaded into Microsoft Dynamics for digital records processing. Workflow 4, in terms of QC and metadata description, Dynamics, as Shelby indicated, is really a custom tool for us. We were able to tailor it specifically to our needs, and it allows us, as part of the description process, to create, define, and maintain relationships between entities or access points, like people, cases, locations, courts, litigation areas, legal concepts, and all of that good stuff. So that's what this image is here, sort of a screenshot of sort of the neural network behind Microsoft Dynamics and what allows us to attach so much meaning to each folder and each item in our collection. Dynamics also allows us to adhere to the hierarchical relationships between boxes, folders, subfolders, and items, which are also captured in this entity network. And we've created a short video that takes you through a bit of the digital records description steps, and we'll get into that right now.
This is what a typical item looks like in Dynamics after ingest. We can see these tabs contain different metadata fields, with this metadata tab specifically referring to fields that were adapted from a pre-existing set of metadata standards known as Dublin Core. Other fields you see here are specific to our collection needs and scope. For example, the Privilege Review tab contains the various categories we use to organize content types in our collection. When we describe items, we always fill out certain required fields, which are referred to as the minimum viable metadata. These are fields that we have decided are the essential minimum level of information provided for an item to be considered fully described and adequate to be shared with the public. For certain types of items or collections, or as we continue to develop Dynamics, we may decide to add additional fields to the minimum viable set. We can also add additional information to items on an ad hoc basis and sync it to the website and Preservica. For now, let me demonstrate what it looks like to describe a typical record with minimum viable metadata. I usually like to pull up the document beside the Dynamics screen so I can see both at the same time. Note that some of the fields will already be filled out because we've added this information to the folder or matter pages that this item falls under, and that information cascades down to all the items under that folder or matter. This is a feature in Dynamics that can save us a significant amount of time. To get started, the first thing we see is the name field. The default name of a file is a unique string of characters that reflects the collection and order of the item within that folder. Instead of keeping this as the name, I'm going to move it to the identifier field under the metadata tab before filling in the correct name. In this case, because this is a court document, we already have a title, And because the name of the case is already identified in the matter field here, and in the name of the folder that the item is situated in, we don't have to add that to the title, and we can transcribe it right from the document. Next, we have the date, which is usually at the end of a court document. As you can see, if there were multiple documents in this one item, which is sometimes the case, I could add a date range. Next, we have the number of pages. And next, we have the phase, which reflects the different courts that one case moves through over time. For this case, Mobile v. Bolden, we've opted not to identify distinct phases and group it under a general phase. We also have a program area, which for Mobile v. Bolden would be voting rights. We could add that here, but in this case it's already been added to the broader matter for the whole case. We could also add more specific tags on the item level. At the bottom of the page, we have the quality control section. This reflects the quality control step, which we often conduct simultaneously with description. This means that we've checked every page of the document to ensure that it is legible, including that the optical character recognition is functional, and that there are no scanning errors or missing pages. Once we've verified that, we can check these as yes. If we did come across any issues, we can note them here. Finally, the last required field for a minimum viable description is privilege review. I assign the content category. In this case, it is a public court document, meaning that it doesn't require privilege review before being published to the website. By selecting certain categories, it will automatically flag the item as potentially sensitive, where it will be reviewed by CAS, our Archives Council, in the next step following description. If it was a different document type, for example, attorney work product, it would be flagged for review and I could leave notes for her. For instance, if I noticed someone's social security number was on a certain page. Additionally, there's this optional description field. We try to be sparing with this field. I use it most often to note when dates are not exact, or as in this instance, there are additional supporting documents that are not reflected in the name of the item. In this case, we have a correspondence between James Blacksher and the court clerk, which I've determined is not really relevant enough to include in the title because it's just notifying the court of submission of the motion. This helps keep the title relatively short and to the point, and because the motion is likely to be of greater interest and relevance to a user. Finally, we have the option to associate people to individual records or phases of a case. As you can see here, the attorneys for this case have already been added on the phase level, so I don't need to add anyone else. This just provides another way for users on the website to locate relevant items, particularly if they're trying to research a particular attorney or even a plaintiff. Finally, I can save my record and also update the metadata to the website if it's ready. This is what a tip.
Almost got through that without technical difficulties. All right. So, there you kind of can see some of the work that goes behind the description and how MS Dynamics really helps us and makes it a more efficient and quick process. Quickly going through the rest of the workflow, this is the privilege review step. Again, we have a lawyer that is embedded in the archives department that specifically looks throughout all of our collections for privilege sensitive and confidential information so that we can understand what we can share and what we can't share. There's a lot of gray area in this space, and we're kind of on the cutting edge of this. We're not aware of any other archive that has a lawyer specifically embedded on their team to evaluate their collections. And so we're really excited about sort of the trail that we're blazing here and the work that we're doing and the foundation that we can set up for other archives who wish to replicate it. Again, after we've indicated what we feel is the proper designation in terms of item type that is connected to a level of public or private designation, our privilege review attorney reviews that, makes whatever changes they determine to be necessary, and then moves things on so we can get to the ingest step. Very quickly, this is what this looks like in Preservica on the back end in terms of implementing security. So as we can see, this is a restricted item on Preservica that is only accessible to our senior leadership team and archivists here at LDF. This is an example of an item or a folder of items that would not be visible on the website due to some level of sensitive privilege or confidential information. And then finally, for the ingestion step, it's quite simple. We review all of the digital content that is set to be ingested, and then we click ingest. A lot of this is handled automatically in terms of checking for things that aren't correct that would cause an error in ingestion. If those things, or if that exists, we are notified and asked to correct whatever that error might be. Then from there, the items are ingested into Preservica for long-term preservation, and those items with the proper designation in terms of being public are then pushed forward via API to our website, LDF Recollection, for public access. And so LDF Recollection is really the end result of all of this, and sort of the reason why we are so excited and why we are so insistent on implementing these processes. This website is an online primary source that satisfies what we believe to be a critical need for accurate, engaging, and comprehensive information about the legal fight for civil rights and racial justice. We hope that LDF Recollection can be used to combat attempts to erase a fulsome and accurate depiction of American history from the classroom and the collective conversation about how we strengthen our democracy. LDF has been ever present in the fight for civil rights and racial justice for nearly 85 years. Preserving and sharing our history is a critical part of building power and agency for everyone. We hope that people not only see this as a valuable research tool, but additionally a call to action to engage with this history and build upon it with their own experiences and perspectives. Very quickly here, just to wrap up, this was an incredibly large undertaking that we could not have done without the very generous support of the Mellon Foundation. We received a very large multi-million-dollar grant, multi-year grant from the Mellon Foundation that allowed for all of this to take place. We couldn't have done this without our consultants, Durable Digital, which did a lot of the coding and building of not only the website, but Microsoft Dynamics, as well as the cost of software and storage, as you can see below with Dynamics, Azure, and Preservica. And then, of course, we can't discount all of the staff time that went into this and continues to go into this as we continue to use and implement the workflow and iterate on it. In terms of what's next, we're going to continue to digitize new cases and collections, run them through this process. We're going to implement dashboards in MS Dynamics that will help us with reporting and other project management integrations. We are going to iterate and evaluate based on assessments against standards, as our previous presenter has. And then we're going to introduce some new file types, including video, objects, and born digital records. And we encourage you to contact us if you have any questions. And then for general questions, you can just shoot us an email to the whole team at archives@naacpldf.org. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Shelby and Ashton. That